Hey, hi friends, welcome to the B.ScIT M.ScIT question answer series. Myself Guru, and today we are going to see the topic from a B.ScIT question paper, that is explain the copy constructor and private constructor with an example in C#. So this was the same question was asked in October 2010 for 6 marks. So for exam point of view, it is very important question. So if you have any doubts and or any queries regarding this session, feel free to mail me on gurumatrix2004@gmail.com. So let's start our session now with the copy constructor. So we will understand one by one, that is we have two types of constructor, that is copy and private. So we will understand the copy constructor first and then the private constructor. Then we will see the simple real-time example by using console application. So let's start our the topic, that is copy constructor. So here we go. Copy constructor, let me just open up my notepad and let me write this. Copy constructor. So copy constructor copies all the values, or let's say all the data of an object into another new object. So as a simple one-liner definition, a copy constructor copies all the data of one object into another new object. So whatever the value is present in the one object, it copies all those values and transfer that all that values into the new object value automatically. So let me just show you with an example what that mean. So let's say I have a class object, let's say I have a class car. Let me just write that. Let's say a car with an object obj car equal to new car. Now let's say my obj car dot holding some values, let's say car name equal to BMW. BMW is one of my favorite cars, so so obj car, let me just write the car price is equal to, let's say it's let's say it's 25,000 rupees, and obj car dot color is equal to black. Now let's say I want to copy all these values. Let's say now the obj car, an object is holding the values like car name, car price, and color. Now let's say I want to copy all these values into another new object. So how it is possible? So by using the copy constructor, it is possible. So let's say if you use the copy constructor in your code, if you create a constructor that is a copy constructor, then it is possible to copy all the values of this object, that is obj car, into the new object. So let's say I have a new object, that is obj car new, and let me just create new car. Now if I want to copy all the values of obj car into the obj car new, means I want to pass on all these values in a BMW to 25 lakhs and black, the color. If I want to pass all this value to this new object, then it is only possible through the copy constructor. So So let's say if I pass this object here, and if my class is having a copy constructor, then this object will automatically will have all those values, whatever the values is been assigned, to my obj car object. So this is the benefit of using an copy constructor in a code. If you want to have a clone of an object, then it is good thing to use the copy constructor in your program. So it creates the clone automatically, and you will get all the values automatically into the new object. So now on this, let's see a simple example, a real-time example. So to do that, I'm going to create a console application. So I'm just use my Visual Studio 2010. So I'm going to create a console application now. So to create the console application, I'm going to my new, I'm going to select my project, and here I'm going to select my console application. If you see, friends, my language is Visual C# and my .NET framework is 4.0. So I'm just going to select the console application. Let me just give a nice name. Copy constructor, and let me just say OK. Now as you see, friends, my console application has been created successfully with some default libraries and with a class program which is having a static void main method. Now I'm going to create a class, a simple class car, which will have a copy constructor. Class car, and first let me just create variables, that is just I'm going to create some variables. Now I'm going to create a simple constructor, that is instance constructor. So let me just create the instance constructor first. Remember the syntax to create the constructor, we need to use the same class name, after an access modifier. Just after an access modifier, you need to use the class name followed by open and close braces, that's it, and followed by the scope. If you want to write anything inside the scope, just use the scope also. So that's it, this is the instance constructor. So let me just repeat it again. So if you want to create the constructor in your class program, then just write access modifier public, then the class name and open and close braces, and followed by the scope. So this is my constructor, this is my instance constructor, I can say this is my normal constructor for a class. And now I'm going to pass on some input values here to the constructor. So let's say string name of car, integer, car number, double car price, and now this inputted values, this inputted variables I'm going to assign to my private variables, that is name of car, car number and car price. Okay, so I am done with my instance constructor. So now I am going to create a copy constructor. So to create the copy constructor, I am going to follow the same rules, that I have followed for a instance constructor. So let me just say public car, open and close, and followed by scope. And now inside this open and close, round braces, I am going to pass the car object. Yes, this is the beauty of the copy constructor, that we need to pass the same class object into the constructor input. So as an input variable, we need to pass a class object, the same class object, to make that constructor as a copy constructor. So now this is my copy constructor. So that's why I'm going to pass the same class object, as an inputted variable. So let me just say car and obj car. So now let me just assign the values now, that is so did you see that, friends, that I have created an instance constructor first, and I have assigned the values from an input variables, that is string, name of car, car number and car price, and assign it to my private variables. And again I have created the copy constructor, which has an input variable as a same class object, and then by using that object only, I have just assigned my private variables with the object variable. So this is how, I have created a copy constructor. Let's see this thing is working or not. To check that, I'm going to use, I'm going to give some values, and I'm going to check whether the copy constructor is creating the copy or not, creating the clone of the main object or not. So let's see. So by using our class program, let's check that. So for that, let's create an object now, a class object, class car object basically. And first, we will be using our instance constructor. Automatically, instance constructor is going to get fired, so let me just show you that. That is car obj1 equal to new car. So as you see, friends, the Visual Studio has prompted me with the intelligence that which constructor I should use. Should I want to use the copy constructor, or should I want to use only the instance constructor? So first I am going to select the instance constructor because I want to pass some values. So let's say I'm using my instance constructor. So that is BMW sedan, the name of my car, and my car number is, let's say 12345, or let's say it is 4545, and my car price is, let's say, let's say 50 lakhs. So did you see that, friends? You know, I have used my first constructor here, that is instance constructor, and I have assigned all the values here, you know, these values automatically, because I have used the instance constructor. Now what I will do, you know, I am going to create another object, another car object. So let's do that, and this time I am going to use my copy constructor. Yes. So in my IntelliSense I am going to select my copy constructor, and this copy constructor needs an object, a car object. So where is our car object? Yes, the first object. The first object, yes, I am going to pass in my second object, that is to my copy constructor I am going to pass my first car object. That's it. I am done, friends. I am done. Yes. Now whatever values is this object is having, you know, automatically all the values, all the data will be passed to this obj2. Means automatically I have created the clone of the object 1, that is object 2 I have created. So now let's check whether all the values are came in this object 2 or not. Let's display that. So by using our console application, console.writeLine, let's display the values now, whatever is there in our object 2. First let's display our car name. So I'm going to use my second object dot. So let me just make this as public variables, just to see, you know, just to see outside the class, you know, because private variables is not accessible outside the class. So that's why I made those variables as public, so that I can get the accessibility outside the class also. So by using the public, you know, I can get the accessibility of that variables, you know, inside the class. So this is my name of car. The same way I am going to display a car number and car price. And let's check the output. So we are done with our program. Let's check the output. Yes, friends, as you can see that, you know, I have able to display all the values of object 1, you know, successfully from using object 2. So as you can see, the car name is BMW sedan, 4545 is my car number, and 50 lakhs is my car price. So whatever the values are there in my object 1, you know, successfully I have able to create the clone of that object 1, and I have, by using the object 2, I have successfully displayed all the values. So this is the use of an copy constructor, you know. So if you use the copy constructor in your program, you know, it automatically creates the clone of that object, you know. For example, let's say if you want to have a clone, you know, if you need a clone of that class object, you know, then better to use copy constructor. So mostly this copy constructor is useful, you know, if you want to have if you're doing some, you know, banking thing, that checking the old values and new values, update batch, let's say creating the invoice, what is the previous invoice, what is a new invoice, you know, then that time I think having the copy constructor will helpful, you know, to execute the program successfully. So this is it, you know, this is all about the copy constructor. And now let's go back to our private constructor, you know. So we have understood about the copy constructor successfully. Now let's understand something about the private constructor. So let's do that. Now let me just open up my notepad and let me write a private constructor. Private constructor. So how to create a private constructor in a class? Let me just show you that. In order to create a private constructor in a class, just use a private access modifier, you know, before the class. Instead of using the public access modifier, just use private access modifier. So it is pretty simple, you know. It is pretty simple to create a private constructor. Just use private access modifier followed by class name, open and close. That's it. You are done. You are done with the private constructor. Now some of the important points, you know. If the class is having the private constructor, then that particular class we cannot inherit. Yes, if we are having a private constructor in a class, then that class we cannot inherit and we cannot create the object of that class. So you must be thinking, you know, if I am having methods, properties, you know, inside that class, you know, then how I am going to gain the access of that methods and properties. So my friends, you know, if you are having methods and properties inside the class, you know, inside that particular class, let's say public void get access is your method, you know. Now you want to gain the access of this get access method, then simply make this method as static. Yes, if you make this method as a static, then only you are able to gain the access of this method. And one more point, you can have a overloaded constructor also, a private constructor, or I'm sorry, a public constructor also. So along with the private constructor, you can have a public constructor also, overloaded one. Now this is your public constructor along with the private constructor. So this is all about the private constructor. Now let's see a simple example on this, you know, by using the private constructor. So let's do that. If you have any doubts or any queries, you know, feel free to mail me on this email ID, gurumatrix2004@gmail.com. So let me just open up my Visual Studio 2010. Now let's create a simple console application the same way as we did for a copy constructor. We'll go to the file and we will say new and we will say project, and I'm going to select a console application. I will say private constructor. I will say OK. So my console application is being created successfully with some default libraries and with the class program which is having static void main method. Now in this I'm going to create a new class, that is, let's create a simple class as employee counter to check how many times the employee has came to the office. It's a simple class which will have a counter for an employee. Let's say class employee counter. Now inside this class I'm going to have a private constructor. Now as I told you, the class which is having a private constructor, we cannot create the object of that class. Let's check that. Let's check that in our static void main method by creating the object obj equal to new See friends, as you can see, we got an error, stating that it is inaccessible due to the protection level. It means we cannot create the object of that particular class. So it means yes, the class which is having a private constructor, we cannot create the object, and the same way we cannot inherit that class also. So let's do that. See, the class employee counter is inaccessible due to its protection level. It means we cannot inherit the class also. So everything is protected by using the private constructor. Now let's have some methods inside this class. I will say I will have one more counter as public int increment counter. It will return so see what I'm doing here, I'm just getting the counter value. So what I did, I'm saying I just created the counter variable, and in my increment counter I have just incremented the counter. In my get counter I'm just trying to display that counter variable. Employee views, so now as you can see that we have created methods and properties inside the employee counter. So what I did here, I have just created the counter variable, and in my increment counter, I have just incremented the counter, and my get counter method, I have just displayed the counter variable. It's pretty simple. Now in order to use these methods and properties, in order to gain the access of this methods, if you want to gain the access of this get counter, how you will get that, because due to its protection level, because of having the private constructor, we cannot get the access of this methods. So how to get the access then? So if you're having the private constructor, then how to get an access? So in order to gain the access of this methods, just use static variable. Yes, a static. I'm just showing how to get the access of methods and properties inside the class which is having the private constructor. So that's it, I'm done. Now I'm going to use this employee counter class, and I will get the access of this variables and methods. So I will say employee counter dot counter. I will assign 100, and I'm going to increment the counter and finally I'm going to just display the counter value. Let's run this program and check the output. See, so we have successfully incremented the counter. So by using the static, by using the static variable, you can gain the access of methods and properties inside the class which is having the private constructor. So this is all about the private constructor. So just to remember, if the class is having the private constructor, remember that we cannot create the object of that particular class, and we cannot inherit that particular class. Yes, along with the private constructor you can have a public constructor like this. Now I will get an error. See, I need to have a overloaded constructor. So along with the private constructor you can have a public constructor also as a overloaded constructor. So this is it. This is all about the constructor. If you have any doubts or any queries, feel free to mail me on gurumatrix2004@gmail.com. So this is very important question in terms of exam point of view, because this is for 6 marks, which was asked in October 2010. So feel free to mail me on this email ID if you have any doubts or any queries. So my friends, thank you. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day. Thank you.